Yo, what is up guys, it's your girl Bex and welcome back to the race rundown following on from arguably one of the most chaotic Canadian Grand Prix I have seen in a while. How are we all? If you are in the UK right now, how are you handling the heat? If you're anything like me right now, I'm sweating in places I didn't even know I could sweat, hence why there is no video episode today, because you don't want to see that. Trust me when I tell you don't want to see that. So, shall we jump straight into it? I feel like we should. We started off with what we thought would be a simple lights out and away we go. However, that did not happen. That did not happen. We got an extra formation lap because they held the lights for way too long. Lord knows what was going on there. So we got an extra formation lap. However, at this point in time, Lindblad's car was not going into gear. Sad times. So he was out before the race had even begun. Then everyone lines up to the grid, everything's looking great. I'm watching it with friends of mine, we're chilling in my living room with my new telly, minding my own business, you know, because for those of you that didn't listen to last week's, I have moved house. Woo! Race Rundown HQ is well and truly up and running now, and we're sitting in the living room, we're watching, and I'm thinking, and I turn to my friend who is also a McLaren fan and I go, Inters? ? Oh yes, Inters. So, I think to myself, well, they've gone and fucked that one, haven't they? The track doesn't look that wet. And it wasn't. So, of course, because he was on Inters, Lando then had an amazing start, goes round the front of the two Mercs, and is just storming out ahead. However, he then had to change from Inters because obviously it wasn't that wet to begin with. A soft tyre would have done enough. But, however, that was not the case. So he had an amazing start, but they fucked it because of the pit strategy. Then Kimi takes over, the Mercs and Lewis are in the top three. There's a constant fight going on between George and Antonelli. We will get into this and my thoughts and opinions on George momentarily. I'm going to withhold my thoughts and feelings for now until I can strategically put them together. So Antonelli then locks up, and so many penalties have been handed out this race, right? So we had Piastri and Albon collision, which then led to Piastri getting a 10-second penalty. We had so many other penalties for speeding in the pit lane. It's almost like they all forgot how to drive. There were so many penalties that I haven't even written them all down, because I was like, you know what? In the most respectful way possible, I know my audience and I know that they're not going to want to listen to every single penalty that happened. Just know there was a lot of them, okay? Hulkenberg got one, Piastri got one, Bottas got one, pretty sure Perez got one, but then he was out anyway, so it didn't even matter. Everybody was handing out penalties. It was like the FIA were fucking Oprah Winfrey. You get a penalty, you get a penalty, everybody gets a penalty. Yay! The only person that didn't get a penalty was Max. Now that is an unusual sight, everybody. That is an unusual sight. So Antonelli absolutely runs circles around George. However, he is then told to give the position back. So he hands the position back to George. George, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he went over a curb or if the car just broke, but he goes off and throws a hissy fit. Ends up with a fine because he threw his headrest onto the track and just lost his rag, which, considering he has made many a comment about Max losing his rag, I find that mildly entertaining. And the TikToks, by the way, keep them up. If anyone follows Race Rundown on TikTok, please send me them. Throw all of the George Russell memes my way because they are so funny. I love them so much. Anyway, so we have the ongoing battle there. Then we have Leclerc, okay, with Hadjar. Hadjar has obviously been in the Max Verstappen school of driving, right? Because that moving under braking was fucking crazy. So anyway, I'm glad they're both okay. It could have been a lot worse. Lap 34, we have Russell, Alonso, and Albon and Lindblad all out, with Hadjar getting a 10-second penalty for driving like a twat. Then, just when I think, you know, Piastri's got the 10-second penalty, it's all on Norris to, you know, absolutely pull this one out of the bag and keep McLaren in the running. What happens? The car breaks. Something's broken, he says. We haven't heard that out of his mouth in a very long time. However, it is an all too familiar feeling. Something is broken, says Lando. And do you know what was broken? My freaking heart, ladies and gentlemen. My freaking heart broke there and then. I turned to my friends and was like, right, that's it. Let's turn it off. It's over. There's no point. There is absolutely no point watching. However, when both of my McLaren boys are out or struggling, I tend to lean straight towards either Ollie or Kimi because I love them both. So the fact that Kimi was out in front healed my heart a little bit. Perez out for a car failure at that point. The suspension snapped, I believe, on the front right. And Hamilton and Max are battling it out like the good old days. I freaking loved it. Honestly, obsessed. Loved it. Would love to see more battles between them two. And to be honest, dare I say it, it was just nice to see Hamilton up in front again where he belongs. Yes, I said that very quietly because the fact that I just had that come out of my mouth is honestly a terrifying thing. However, it's nice to see him back again. So, in the top 3, you may ask, Bex, who was in the top 3 in the end? We had young boy Kimi in first. We had the one and only Mr. LH. I can hear the Team LH fans on Twitter going ham. He's back. This is it, lads. We're coming back. We're getting the 8th. I wouldn't go that far. 7.5 is where you're at currently. Then we had Max in third, okay? Now, there isn't really a lot of off-track news going on at the moment, but I have some thoughts and potentially some unpopular opinions, which you guys can hold me accountable for in the comments if you wish. So we have the first one, which I mentioned this to my friends last night, and they somewhat agreed with me. I feel as though F1 is boring now that Christian Horner's left. We needed a villain in the paddock, and we don't have that anymore since Horner left. Everybody seems to be somewhat well behaved. I think the closest thing we have now is Zach Brown, and even he's too nice to be the full villain that Christian Horner was. So the drama has subsided slightly. The only dramas that there really are is who's dating who's broken up with who, blah blah blah. Is Lewis going to announce his retirement at Silverstone? I wasn't even going to bring that up, but like, honestly, if he does, again, I said this last night, I said he'd never move to Ferrari and he did. So I can't trust that man anymore. And to be honest, if he did announce his retirement, fair enough. You know, it's been a good run, but we'll see. So those are those two things. Now I want to get to my thoughts on George. He's recently done an interview basically being really big-headed, saying that he's owed a championship in the next 2 years. I want to start this off by saying, the fuck? You are not owed anything. You are one of the most untalented, big-headed drivers I think I've ever seen on the grid. And you need to stop making mistakes and get better at driving in order to win a championship, my friend, because you are meant to be, supposedly, the number 1 driver at Mercedes, and you're being run around rampant by a 19-year-old. You are not owed shit, George Russell. You are not owed shit. You need to get better at being a world champion. The only reason why Lando was a world champion was because, and I'm going to say this as a McLaren fan, because he got lucky, okay? I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. Some people will disagree with me on that. But in my personal opinion, he got lucky that Oscar had a bad race and that Max had a good race. That is it. He got very lucky. He won by the skin of his teeth. I think whether you agree that he got lucky or whether you agree that it was a close one, he won by the skin of his teeth, and that's something we can all agree on. So if Lando only wins by the skin of his teeth, and he was in the lead for a long amount of time, you, George Russell, sir, not that you'll ever freaking listen to me anyway, need to check yourself, because you need to be a lot better at driving. More to the point, being consistent in order to win races and become a world champion. You are not owed shit. And the fact that you are being outperformed by a 19-year-old is sad. And you have become full of yourself. Everybody used to like you more when you were at Williams because you had a personality. I have said this before, but I'll say it again. I feel like Mercedes takes the personality of any driver and just turns them into an arsehole, because obviously they all want to win, right? And there's a lot of pressure on them winning. However, I feel like since George went there, every ounce of personality that he had and any ounce of enjoyment that he had completely dissipated, because he is adamant that he's owed a world championship. He ain't owed fucking shit. He ain't owed fucking shit, and he needs to get better before he can even think about being a world champion. And that's where I'm going to end that, to be honest. And because I want to end it on a more positive note, it is really nice to see Lewis and his mum out and about travelling. I know that he took her to China at the beginning of the year, and it appears that she's got the travel bug because she was in Montreal this weekend. And it's really nice to see him and his mum spending time together, traveling the world. Is really great, because normally, you know, you see his dad there, and, you know, he's become quite a regular on the grid over the years. And it's nice to see his mum there as well, as I know they're quite close. And it's really sweet that she was there to see him get second this weekend. Could we see Lewis back to his winning ways again? I will leave that up to you guys. The Tifosi will be happy either way, as it may not be a Ferrari consistently leading the championship at the moment, but it is an Italian 19-year-old. So, on that note, I'm going to end this episode before I rant about George for another 25 minutes. The next race we have is Monaco. Yay! As you all know, Monaco is not my favourite track of the year. However, it will be interesting to see how these new cars behave around this track. They are a lot bigger, so I'm not expecting there to be much overtaking. So it could be a pretty boring race. However, and I will of course tune in as always and give you guys my thoughts and feelings and opinions, because for whatever reason you guys stick around and listen to my thoughts and opinions, and I will forever be thankful for that. So until the 7th of June, ladies and gentlemen, at 2 p.m, I've been your girl Bex. This has been the Race Rundown, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.